In a quiet Texas town, where everyone left their doors unlocked and nothing bad ever happened, a discovery beneath an old church would shatter the illusion of safety forever. It was a place built on faith and community, but deep within its foundation, a sinister secret had been festering for decades, hidden from sight, just waiting to be unearthed. The story of what lay beneath that sacred ground would not only expose a monster, but also reveal how evil can wear the most unsuspecting of masks. On March 4th, 1998, a church janitor named Earl made his way into the basement to fix a flickering light bulb. It was a routine task he'd done 100 times before. The air was damp and smelled of old wood and forgotten hymnals. But as the single bulb swung back and forth, casting eerie, dancing shadows across the concrete walls, something caught his eye. It was a section of the wall that seemed different. A faint outline, almost perfectly disguised. Pushing against it, he was shocked when a portion of the wall gave way, revealing a hidden door he had never seen before in all his years working there. Peeking inside, he saw dried, dark stains on the floor just beyond the threshold. They definitely didn't belong there. A chill ran down his spine. This wasn't just dust and decay. It was something else entirely. His heart pounded in his chest. Earl sprinted out of the basement, fumbling for his keys, and immediately called the police from the church office. He tried to explain what he found, his voice trembling. Within minutes, the quiet morning was broken by the sound of sirens. Officers descended into the forgotten room, their flashlights cutting through the thick, musty air. What began as a simple maintenance check was rapidly escalating into a major criminal investigation. The moment they stepped across that hidden threshold, they knew they had stumbled upon a scene of unimaginable horror. The hidden space wasn't on any of the church's blueprints. It was a small, windowless chamber, cold and suffocating. The concrete floor was heavily stained. A metal table stood in the center, and old, weathered tools were scattered around it. Hammers, pliers, lengths of rope. It looked like a workshop, but the atmosphere felt heavy, charged with a dark energy. And there, in the corner, half covered by a dusty tarp, was an old Polaroid camera. Its last photograph, shielded from the light, was undeveloped but still inside. An officer carefully picked it up, knowing that this small piece of film could hold the key to a terrible secret. Back at the station, forensic technicians carefully worked to develop the final photograph. As the image slowly materialized, the entire room went silent. The picture showed the basement, this exact hidden basement, but it was clearly taken many years earlier. And in the center of the frame, a young woman was tied to a chair. Her face was a blur of fear and desperation. The investigators stared at the photo, a sense of dread washing over them. This wasn't just a crime scene. It was a tomb that had just given up its ghost. A veteran detective looked at the image, his face pale. He recognized the girl. Her face had been plastered on missing person posters all over the state 2 decades ago. She was at the center of a cold case from 1978, a teenager named Sarah who had vanished without a trace while walking home from choir practice at this very church. The investigation had gone nowhere, leads dried up, and her family was left without answers. The case went cold until this very moment. The Polaroid had just reignited a 20-year-old mystery, connecting a forgotten disappearance to this hidden chamber of horrors. As investigators dug deeper, the room began to tell a more disturbing story. The dust patterns and displaced objects suggested it hadn't been abandoned after that one horrific act in 1978. It showed signs of long-term, intermittent use. Someone had been coming back here, again and again, for years after Sarah's disappearance. The chilling realization dawned on them. This wasn't a one-time crime. This was a predator's lair, a place they returned to, a secret sanctuary for their dark deeds. The thought that someone had been using this space, right under the noses of the congregation, was almost too much to bear. The forensic teams worked meticulously, swabbing every surface for evidence. They found faint biological traces preserved in the cold, dry air of the room. Weeks of anxious waiting followed. Then, the call came from the lab. A DNA match had come back. The evidence was linked to a man named Robert, a former church volunteer who had been a well-liked and trusted member of the community back in the 70s and 80s. Parish records showed he had mysteriously moved out of state in the early 2000s, telling everyone he was seeking a fresh start. Now, it was clear he was running from his past. The investigation kicked into high gear. Detectives quickly discovered that Robert, the once friendly face at Sunday service, had been living under a series of aliases across Texas and Oklahoma. He was a ghost, moving from one small town to the next, never staying in one place for too long. As they mapped out his trail, a terrifying pattern emerged. Every single town he had lived in had at least one unresolved missing persons report, often a young person who had vanished without explanation. The scope of his crimes was far greater than they could have ever imagined. With the help of federal authorities, U.S. Marshals tracked him to a small, rundown RV park near the Texas-Oklahoma border. Under the cover of darkness, they surrounded his vehicle. When they approached him, the aging man showed no surprise, no fear, and no resistance. As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, he looked at the lead agent and spoke in a calm, steady voice. He simply said, "I wondered how long it would take." The lack of emotion, the casual acceptance of his capture, was perhaps the most frightening thing of all. In a cold, brightly lit interrogation room, Robert confessed to everything. His confession was delivered without a hint of remorse, a chilling, matter-of-fact account of decades of evil. He admitted to using the church basement for years. He called it the perfect place because no one ever questioned the locked door in the forgotten corner of the basement. He told them his victims were chosen at random, people he believed wouldn't be missed right away, drifters, runaways, or those who were new to town. He saw them as disposable, their lives meaningless. He was a predator hiding in the one place everyone thought was safe. The news ripped through the small Texas town, leaving a wake of devastation and betrayal. The church, once a symbol of hope and sanctuary, now felt tainted. A candlelight vigil was held on the lawn outside, not just for Sarah, but for all the unnamed victims he had claimed over the years. Families who had waited decades for answers finally had them. But the truth brought a fresh wave of heartbreak and pain, not comfort. The knowledge of what had happened in that basement, for so long, was a wound that would never fully heal. This case served as a brutal reminder to Texas and to the entire nation that true evil doesn't always come in the form of a shadowy stranger lurking in a dark alley. It doesn't always have a monstrous face. Sometimes, the most dangerous monsters are the ones we know, the ones we trust, the ones we welcome into our communities. Sometimes, evil is hiding in the most trusted places, patiently waiting behind a familiar smile. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into cases that uncover the hidden truths of our world. Stay safe out there.